Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme, exploring some of the community's favorite songs from 2022. Today, we're checking out a track from a band, Wormrot. All one word, though, despite my pause. The track is called Glass Shards, and honestly, I saw the album art and I was like, oh, this is okay. And then I heard the name of the title in the band, which conveniently isn't on the album. I think that might be a little disingenuous, maybe. I don't know the word there. I feel like I'm being led astray. I don't know what we're in for, but Wormrot doesn't sound like a happy band. So let's dive into this and see what they're bringing to the table with Glass Shards. That last drum section. I'm not a real big fan of how wet the drums are, but the drumming itself is intense. Wait a second. There's still 30 seconds left on this video. All right, so that was probably fairly difficult to listen to. Uh, Judging entirely on volume, we were hitting about uh 40 dBs quieter, 40 decibels quieter than the song proper. It was mostly just like water sloshing around, like a stream, but with not a quickly moving current, more like I guess it'd be like a beach then, like waves coming up on shore, just kind of that initial sound and then kind of silence and then the sound of a small crash. You know, we're not talking big waves. Um, Interesting. So this isn't black metal, but a lot of it I would classify in a similar realm. We have tremolo picking on slow moving note changes. We have harsh vocals that are, I can't make them out. And the drumming is a lot of attacks. What the core reason I wouldn't classify this as black metal is because of what notes are being played. Black metal tends to play around with darker chords, and this was kind of bright. Some of that's going to be tonality. The guitars have a very bright tone to them, but the melodies are also kind of uplift, not positive, maybe. Even that it feels like a bit vague, but uplifting is too far in that direction. I like on the positive side of neutral, if that makes sense. The neutral side of positivity. Um, but it lacks that overall darkness that black metal goes for, but it achieves the emotions they do with similar tools that black metal utilizes in their composition. It's interesting. There's also that break in the middle where we shift from tremolo picking or I don't maybe it's not tremolo. I'm trying to remember if there is a strict pattern because maybe it is just 16th note. Anyways, it's fast guitar picking. And we shift over to suspended notes, only picking when we change notes, and having these really long notes being held out, which, like I said earlier, if you only count when the pitches change, it's kind of a slow moving song. The speed comes from the fact that we play each note 50 times before we move on. The drums are still rather energetic here, but the melody kind of calms down a little bit. We get this really beautiful violin line that goes on top of it and gets transferred over into the next section, which brings back the faster picking. This is a really nice break. The song is very intense, and we get this moment in the middle to kind of catch our breath and listen to the music with the constant repeated attacks removed. And I find this to be a really beautiful part, even if it is short lived. Now, I gotta talk about these drums. I couldn't quite pinpoint what was wrong with them. Let me rephrase that. What I didn't like about them. Because there's nothing wrong with what happened. Uh, I'm just not a big fan of it. And I did point it out in the reaction. If you're paying attention, you know where this is going. The production on the low end stuff feels weird. The hi hat, the cymbals, even the snare sound okay. But the toms and the bass kick are very muddy. Way too muddy for the amount of playing that's going on here. It almost sounds like, especially at the speed that they're hitting these drums, that there's just no break between hits. The reverberation that comes off of each of the strikes kind of bleeds over into the next, and it creates this. Well, it's almost like they made it so that the drum can hold out notes. A drier drum sound is you hit it, you get your attack and a quick fade out, a quick tail at the end of the sound as the sound waves disperse naturally. And depending on your acoustics, that's going to be longer or shorter. But this feels like the notes just continue to exist even into 3 and 4 hits later. And it just ends up feeling very muddy to me. There's a lot of overlap between notes, and with something as well, I'm trying to think of a way to explain this. When you think of somebody holding out notes, when you're looking at it in like an audio workstation or something, it's kind of like a bar. Whereas when you look at drums, because each attack is rather sharp, and then you get a quick fade out, and then there's nothing else to it. It's kind of a series of these peaks, right? Where it kind of spikes up where the initial hit is, and we kind of get the fade out after the tail, and it's just a lot of these. So if you hold out a note, it's consistent noise, and drums are, lots of spikes on them. Um, this is a drum set that would look like a pitched instrument, as far as I can assume, in the audio workstation, and it's neat. It's a neat idea, and I wonder if there's an execution of this that I might enjoy more. But for this specific execution, I feel I don't know, it runs counter to everything else. Even the vocals, which are produced down into more of a lo-fi style and pushed into the mix, still have a clarity to them. It isn't super distracting. I picked up on it early, but I was like, whatever. It wasn't clear enough for me to understand what was at play here, so I just kind of forgot about it. But when we got that held out guitar tone with the drums going crazy, and that was kind of it, everything else was silent. And that's when I heard it. It's a very wet, produced drum sound. And it works a lot better in context of the whole band, but when it's practically in isolation there, you really feel all of what's going on, and it feels so muddy to me. It's not a very crisp sound at all. And once I heard that, it really colored the way that I understood the drumming, even, well, especially when we got to the end and the violin's playing this beautiful line and the guitar's doing their fast picking alongside the same melody that the violin's doing. And I was like, man, this is, it's actually kind of reaching an element of gorgeousness. This is actually kind of a pretty element we have here, even though there's a lot of abrasive rhythmic concepts to it. And then, the drums doing some hi-hat and snare stuff. I think some other cymbals are in there. And it was really gorgeous until 15, 20 seconds until the end of the song. When the song ends, forgetting about that 40-second trail off outro. There's like this last 20 seconds when there's a tom run, and it's like all toms. And it just lost all of that beauty in my ears. Everybody has different opinions. You may really love the drum sound and think that the drum moving to the tom run there amplifies the track, and you're welcome to that opinion. Mine's just an opinion as well. But it detracts every time because it calls way too much attention to itself. Um, and it is my biggest problem with this track. Um, Speaking of the ending, so the beginning of the track is a lot of a lot. There is a lot of picking, there's a lot of screaming, there's a lot of drumming. There's even one part, I don't know what my face was like. The drums did this thing where they delayed themselves by like a 16th of a note, like such a small amount of time, and it was just this really tight gallop idea that was being pushed up against this solid 16th note attack in the guitar or something like that. and it was just this wild, complex drumming idea that just created this bonkers rhythmic feeling. And this whole opening is just kind of chaos, and then we kind of bring it down a little bit. We get these held out guitar tones. We bring in a violin. We bring back some of this intensity, but it feels more cohesive. It's less rhythmically involved and more melodically involved. And that's not to say that there's no melody in the first half. There is. The riffs are primarily crafted from melody. Like I had mentioned earlier, if you kind of remove all those attacks and you just pick the guitar when the note changes, you kind of get a slow moving melody. That was the word I used. And here actually, you can hear the guitar doing its really fast picking against the violin's really smooth bowing. And the violin changes direction on the bow, which would be an attack when it changes notes, but not otherwise. So you actually get both of these sides of holding out a note versus continuously playing a note at the same time. It's really neat texture layering. But you can absolutely hear how the fast guitar riff actually isn't fast at all in how the violin is playing it. Um, and there's just this really strong sense of moving from that chaotic rhythmic stuff to this beautiful paced element. And that's not to say that the beginning is rushed, but it feels rushing because of all the intensity in here. Even though we have the faster playing, like I said, it feels more patient in a sense. There's still a lot of moving parts, but it feels paced just a little bit more intently. And it's really interesting to hear the song evolve this way. To start out as something that I would just call noisy, just kind of making a lot of sounds, and end up in a place where I call it beautiful, without really giving up the techniques that they utilized in their busier opening. A lot of bands can go from noisy to beautiful, but it's because they completely shift up what they were doing. They shift from, harsh vocals to cleans, and from dissonant runs to consonant runs, and, bringing in more elements of melody. They don't really change what they're doing, they just changed how it's layered. And I think it's really fascinating to hear that. Now, on a more thematic level, I have no idea what's going on here. A lot of the times I listen to music and I have visuals or some sort of narrative that my head goes through and creates when I listen to it. And this is just a lot of sound, which typically I have a hard time um, getting a read on and interpreting. It's just a style of music I don't have a lot of experience with. And so I don't know if it's just me not knowing how to interpret it, or my brain is working on overdrive trying to analyze it so it doesn't get a chance to kind of get into that more dream state, what is it trying to tell me mode. But I just don't really have a strong read on what the music says to me. It's just, we were noisy and now we're noisy but beautiful, and that's just a really neat transition there. And I think that's the best read I have on the music. I'm going to take a moment here, read the lyrics, and we'll see where that takes us. So, it just dawned on me that we are 3 for 3 on the community's favorite tracks. And one, enjoyment's not really something I've gotten out of these, which makes me feel a little divorced from the community. Though I also understand this is only 3 songs, and even when we get to the end of the week, that's only 5. It's not supposed to be representative of the 27,000 subscribers that are here. Um, so I'm not trying to say anything like that, but it is interesting that we've started off with Black MIDI, which was abrasive rock, Then we went to whatever that band was called, Chat Pile, which was just depressive, haunting, abrasive guitar tracks, guitar lines with screaming, and now Wormrot, which is abrasive in some elements, but I said reached an element of beauty, and that's all perverted by the lyrics, which feel right at home in black metal. Much like I don't understand how these patterns are. Much like yesterday's chat pile, this is a song about somebody who wants to die. Unlike chat pile, which at least to me seemed to be about somebody whose life was too stressful uh, to operate within, this is somebody who has a very poor self image. This doesn't feel like a last ditch attempt at peace. This feels like ending the life of somebody they hate. It just happens to be themselves. There's a lot of lines in here that bring up concepts of self loathing, a hatred for oneself. It is constant belittlement for themselves. There is one line that, or two lines that I think speak to be not necessarily powerful imagery, although it is a bit of a metaphorical angle, but that speak to be the thesis statement, if you will. It pretty much sums up the lyrics as a whole. It says, I look in the mirror and spit on my image. The very sight of myself burns me straight to the core. They go on to call themselves a parasite in human disguise. And says that no one will understand them. They see things in ways that no one would ever understand. They pray for death every night. They say they never wanted to be here. They don't belong here. They just want death. This doesn't line up with my reading of the music at all. The chaos, yes. I think that this the negativity in the lyrics fits well with the abrasive concepts of the music itself, especially considering the frequent attacks that we have in that thrashy style of music. But note choice, chordal choice, harmonies, the best connection I can say is that this person dreams of death as a release, and that this dream is represented musically. This perceived relief uh, is the beautiful violin line. I don't know. I'm done with this track. After yesterday's chat pile, ay, those are my thoughts on Wormrot's Glass Shards. This is where y'all come in. Let me know what you thought of this track. Anything that stood out to you, anything you'd like to add on to it. Let me know down in the comments. Above the comment section is description box. In the description box is a link to Linktree. It takes you to this place that has links for everything related to the channel. You can find my music, multiple ways to support the channel, uh, some other stuff. I'd link to the Discord server. I don't know if I said that. Above that, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. We have a special selection coming up next. Hopefully, it's a little more positive. This is three. Well, I mean, no, this is just a depressing week. Our first track was about gambling addiction. Then we listened to a track about uh, capitalism ruining the lives of the little guys. And then Chat Pile. and then doom jazz that wasn't really negative, but wasn't really positive. At least it didn't bring me down. And now Wormrot. What a week. I'll take a week off after this. Ah. Anyways, hopefully we got a pretty good special selection up next. I'm kind of hoping. Otherwise, I'm still gonna do it. I don't know why I said otherwise. If you're not interested in that, I'll be back tomorrow. Same time as always, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of your favorite tracks of 2022. Wait, everybody? Oh man, I don't want to make generalizations. 3 songs don't represent a whole community, but man, this is just a wild pattern. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.